The morning my son told me I wasn't welcome for Thanksgiving, I didn't argue. I stood on the porch of the house I'd helped him buy, my boots sinking into the damp November earth, and nodded. "Clear enough?" I said, my voice steady as the Montana wind cutting through the pines. I climbed into my old Ford, the engine rumbling to life, and by the time I reached the county road, I'd already dialed the bank. The mortgage payments I'd been covering for 4 years, $2,100 a month wired like clockwork, were done. Canceled. That was just the first move. Justice doesn't shout, it plans, and I was only getting started. The air in Missoula that morning carried the bite of winter, the kind that makes your breath visible and your thoughts sharp. I'd driven 37 miles from my cabin in Lolo, the toolbox rattling in the truck bed because Ethan had called a week ago, asking for help with a shed door that wouldn't close right. "Need your hands, Dad," he'd said, his voice light, almost playful. "You're better with a wrench than I'll ever be." I'd packed my tools, my thermos, and a small hope that this Thanksgiving might mend the cracks between us. I hadn't missed a holiday with Ethan since I came back from Iraq in '91, not even when my wife, Clara, passed from cancer 7 years ago. Not when my knee gave out after a fall and I hobbled to their doorstep with a cane, but when I arrived at their split level on the edge of town. Ethan stood in the doorway, his arms crossed, his eyes avoiding mine. "Dad," he said, shifting like a man who'd rehearsed bad news. "This year we're doing Thanksgiving with Lisa's folks." "You're not expected." The word landed like a misfired round. Expected. Not uninvited. Not unwanted. Just a line item scratched off a list. I looked past him into the house I'd co-signed for, a 2.8% VA loan, $28,000 of my pension for the down payment, $2,100 a month since to keep their lights on. Lisa was in the kitchen arranging flowers in a vase, her back to me. My granddaughter, Sophie, sat at the table coloring a turkey on construction paper. A pair of hiking boots I'd bought her last Christmas sat by the door, scuffed but loved. I kept my face still, a habit from years of taking orders I didn't like. "Something I did?" I asked. Ethan sighed, hands in his pockets. "It's not you, Dad. Lisa's parents have their traditions. You know how it is." "Traditions," I repeated, tasting the word. "Right. We can do something after," he offered half-hearted. "Lunch, maybe?" Lunch. I'd driven through sleet with a toolbox for lunch. "Clear enough," I said and turned back to my truck. The door clicked shut behind me before I reached the driveway. By the time I hit the highway, the windshield was fogging, but my mind was clear. I'd co-signed their mortgage when Ethan called me 4 years ago, his voice shaky. "Dad, we're drowning in rent. Got a shot at a house, but my credit's shot from the medical bills. Can you help?" I didn't blink. I fronted the down payment, set up the auto payments, and covered their furnace repair, their water heater, even Sophie's preschool fees when they came up short. That's what fathers do, build foundations. But foundations crumble when you forget who poured them. Back at my cabin, the cedar walls smelled of wood smoke and time. The roof sagged, the carpet was threadbare, and the water heater groaned like it was on its last legs. I hadn't fixed it because my pension went to their mortgage. I hung my jacket on the hook, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at a photo on the counter, Ethan at 18. Clara beaming beside him, me in my dress blues, fresh from Fort Lewis. We looked like we belonged to each other. I pulled out a file box from under the table, the kind I'd used to organize deployment orders. Inside were bank statements, mortgage records, emails from Ethan promising to pay me back someday. I hadn't asked for repayment. I'd asked for family. At 10:17 a.m. I called the bank. "Mr. Harlan," the clerk said, her voice clipped and professional. "How can I assist you? Need to cancel a recurring payment. Mortgage $2,100 monthly, Wells Fargo." Paused or canceled entirely. I looked out the window. Snow dusted the pines, slow and deliberate. "Canceled. Effective now, processed," she said after a pause. "Anything else?" "No, ma'am." I hung up and the silence felt like the first clean breath after a long march. My budget would breathe again. New tires, a fixed heater, maybe a coat that didn't leak at the seams. It wasn't revenge, it was recalibration. That night I didn't eat. Not out of anger, but because hunger felt honest. I sipped cold coffee and opened the file box again. Dates, amounts, promises. $28,000 down payment, March 2021. $2,100 monthly, April 2021 to now. $700 for a new fridge when theirs died. $450 for Sophie's boots and school supplies. I'd kept it all not to tally a debt but because soldiers document. Always. The next morning I woke at 5:30, no alarm. Just instinct. The Army carves that into you. I boiled water, stepped onto the porch and watched the snow settle, erasing yesterday's tracks. My phone buzzed. A text from Lisa at 10:02 p.m. the night before. Ethan says you canceled the mortgage payment. Assuming this is a mistake. Can we talk? No greeting, no apology, just a demand. I typed back. Talk to Ethan, he called that afternoon. I let it ring twice. Dad, he said, his voice tight, you canceled the payments. Correct. I thought, maybe it was a mix-up. No mix-up, I said. I've paid your way for 4 years. You said I'm not expected for Thanksgiving, so I'm not expected to pay either. Dad, we're tight on money. You know that. You've been tight for years, Ethan. What's not fair is taking my money and telling me I don't belong at your table. Silence. Then Lisa's parents. They're particular. It's not personal. Particular, I said. Like I'm not refined enough for their wine and cheese? It's not like that, he mumbled, but the shame was there leaking through the line. I didn't mean for this. Then what did you mean? I asked. He didn't answer. I hung up. That night I opened a footlocker in the shed, one I hadn't touched since Clara's funeral. Inside were my old service medals, a field notebook, and a pair of dog tags, scratched but intact. I flipped through the notebook. Coordinates, call signs, lessons from the desert. Trust what you see, not what you're told. I'd traded that clarity for family dinners, for hope that Ethan would remember who raised him. Yesterday reminded me a soldier doesn't beg for a seat. He builds his own table. By Friday, I had 3 folders on the kitchen table. Folder 1, financial records. Bank statements, mortgage transfers, receipts for their dishwasher, their fence repair, all in my name. 90,200 in proof. Folder 2, screenshots. Lisa's Instagram posts about their dream home captioned, "Blessed to build this life together." No mention of me. Folder 3, notes, my own voice memos, recording dates and slights like when Ethan canceled Father's Day because Lisa's dad wanted to golf. I wasn't building a case yet, just a map of where I'd been erased. Sunday, Lisa called. Dennis, she said, her voice bright as cracked glass. There's been a misunderstanding. Is that so? You're punishing Ethan, Sophie, yourself. This isn't fair. Fair, I said, leaning against the counter. What's fair about telling me I'm not family anymore? We didn't say that, she snapped, then softened. The kids love you. Let's not ruin that, I almost laughed. Lisa, you don't get to use Sophie as leverage. I'm done funding a life that excludes me. You're acting irrational, she said, the accusation sharp. Am I? Or am I just done being your bank? Silence. Then, you're making a mistake, Dennis. No, I said. I'm correcting one. I hung up, poured a glass of whiskey I'd saved since Clara's passing, and toasted her photo on the mantel. I'm back in the fight, I whispered. Tuesday, a voicemail from a stranger. Mr. Harlan, I'm Rachel Klein, Missoula Tribune. I'm working on a story about family estrangement during the holidays. Your name came up. Call me back. The source was obvious. Lisa's mother, Patricia, president of the local arts council, a woman who'd once called my cabin rustic, like it was a disease. I called Klein back not to plead, but to gather intel. Dennis, Klein said, her voice young but steady. Patricia Evans suggested you might be struggling, possibly with cognitive issues, and that recent financial decisions were impulsive. Did she send you bank records? I asked. A canceled mortgage transfer and some emails. I smiled. This a story or a setup? Started as a setup, she admitted. But I'd like your side. I met her that afternoon at a diner downtown, my flannel pressed, my boots polished. Not to impress, but to show I was exactly who I was. A retired sergeant major, clear-eyed, no cracks in the foundation. I handed her a folder. Bank statements, receipts, photos of their house from the street. I co-signed their mortgage, I said. Paid $2,100 a month for 4 years. Then they told me I wasn't expected for Thanksgiving. She winced. That's cold. It's honest, I said. Thursday, the Tribune ran the story. The unseen benefactor, one veteran's silent holiday. Page 6, not front page, but it didn't need to be. It was factual, respectful, with a photo of me at my kitchen table. Clara's frame out of shot as I'd requested. It didn't name Ethan or Lisa, but their social media posts made them easy to spot. Comments flooded in. Shame on them. This man deserves better. Lisa Evans bragging about her earned home. Disgraceful. By 3:45 p.m., Ethan called. I let it go to voicemail. Lisa called, then Patricia, then a blocked number. Finally, I answered. Dennis, said Roger, Lisa's father, a real estate broker with a voice like polished oak. You need to retract that article. I didn't write it, I said. I gave facts. You're humiliating my daughter. She humiliated herself when she forgot who paid for her roof. This will have consequences, he said. Roger, I said. I survived Basra. You think I'm scared of your country club gossip? He hung up. That night I drove by their house. The Christmas lights were gone, the yard bare except for a for sale sign. They were running. At 9:17 p.m., an email from Ethan. Dad, I'm sorry. I messed up. The kids miss you. Can we talk? Attached was a photo of Sophie, age 4, in my old field cap, grinning. Below in crayon, I love you, Grandpa. I stared at it, my chest tight. 2 tears fell, one for the boy I raised, one for the man he'd become. The next morning I framed the photo, set it beside Clara's. I didn't reply. Let him feel the weight. November 27th, Thanksgiving. I stood across their street, my truck's engine off. Their house glowed with lights, wreaths on every window, a curated scene of warmth. Laughter spilled out, glasses clinked. 12 guests, none of them me. I carried a briefcase with 12 packets. Bank statements, receipts, the Tribune article. Lisa's Instagram post captioned, grateful for what we've built. Lies polished to shine, I didn't knock. The door was unlocked. Safe neighborhoods don't expect truth to walk in. I stepped inside, the air thick with sage and wine. The room froze. 12 faces turned, curious, confused, then pale. Lisa gasped. Dennis, what are you doing? Ethan stood, napkin in hand. Dad, I raised a hand calm. I won't stay. Since I wasn't expected for dinner, I brought gifts. I moved around the table, placing a packet before each guest. Patricia opened hers, her face draining as she read the mortgage records. You paid for this house, a guest muttered, scanning the documents. Every month, I said. Plus the down payment, the furnace, the countertops you're eating on. Lisa's voice shook. You're humiliating us, and no, I said. I'm correcting a lie. You told these people you built this life. I built the foundation. A woman at the table, soft-spoken, said, Ethan, you said you were self-made. He's ashamed, I said. Ashamed of the man who kept the lights on. Patricia stood. This is unacceptable. Leave or I'll call the police. The Tribune's running a follow-up next week, I said. With names, she sat down. A man near the window, older, said, Thank you for your service, sir. That was enough. I picked up my empty briefcase and walked out. Behind me, Lisa's sobs broke the silence. A voice muttered, They'll lose it all. I drove home, the snow falling soft and steady. I didn't feel victorious, just done. I poured a whiskey, sat by the fire, and let the quiet settle. I wasn't the invisible bank anymore. I was the man who'd spoken. 3 days later, a foreclosure notice arrived. $12,600 past due, 14 days to act. I set it on the counter untouched. They'd built a life on my dime. Now they'd learn to stand without it. That evening, Ethan knocked. He looked hollow, his coat too thin for the cold. Dad, he said. I stepped aside. He walked in, eyes tracing the patched walls, the oiled floorboards. This place looks good. It's what happens when you stop giving your money to people who don't see you. He winced. I saw the foreclosure notice. It's bad, I nodded. We didn't realize how much we relied on you. You did, I said. You just didn't care. He pulled out a folded paper, his handwriting shaky but precise. $2,100 monthly x 48 months, $28,000 down payment, fund $200 for repairs, $600 for Sophie's school. I added it up, he said. From your emails, your bank records. You missed some, I said. I know, he said. But it's enough to see. I chose Lisa's family over you. Now they're gone, and I'm here wondering how I let it get this far. I stayed quiet. He continued. Lisa says we need you to bail us out. I told her no. You don't owe us anything. And her? I asked. She left. Packed a bag, went to her parents. I walked to the mantel, touched Sophie's photo. We're not going back, I said. But we might go forward. If you want that, you build it. Not with money, with respect. He nodded, eyes wet. The mortgage? Not my problem, I said. Figure it out. He left, turning halfway down the drive. Dad, I'm proud of you. For standing up, I nodded. It was enough. That night, Lisa called. Dennis, she said, her voice thin. We're losing the house. Josh says you're done. I am. For Sophie's sake, can we talk? No, Lisa, I said. You said I wasn't refined. That my stories were too rough for your table. That was your choice. You're abandoning us. I'm protecting what's mine, she pivoted. We've talked to a lawyer. The payments might be seen as an implied gift. I pulled an envelope from my drawer, prepared weeks ago. My attorney's expecting that. Every transfer, every receipt, every tax return says I'm not liable. Want his number? Then softly, I didn't mean for this. You did, I said, and I'm not angry anymore. But I'll never trust you again. I hung up. The war was over. Truth doesn't negotiate. A week later, a letter arrived, no return address. Inside, a drawing in purple crayon. A man with a truck, a girl beside him labeled me and Grandpa. Below, in Sophie's wobbly hand, I miss you. Thank you for my boots. Merry Christmas, Sophie. I sat with it, the weight heavier than any metal. I wrote back, Dear Sophie, your letter warmed my whole house. You looked strong in those boots. Keep them clean, walk tall. This is your home too. Love, Grandpa Sam. Days later, another envelope. A photo of Sophie saluting in her boots. A sign taped to their house. Grandpa built this. I choked on the air. The truth sharper than I'd expected. On Christmas Eve, a car pulled up. Sophie stepped out alone, holding a wrapped box. Dad dropped me off, she said. Said he's at a meeting. Inside, we ate eggs, and she unwrapped the box. A shadow box with my dog tags, Clara's locket. A photo of Ethan as a boy. Grandma hid this, Sophie said. She said it's for when Dad remembers who he is. He's starting to, I said. She looked at me. Can I stay till school starts? This is your home, I said. She grinned. It's real here. We walked the trail behind the cabin, snow crunching underfoot. That night I burned the folders in the fire, not out of forgiveness, but because I didn't need them anymore. Sophie slept on the couch and I whispered to Clara's photo, We're building again. Christmas morning I lit a candle in the window like Clara used to. For anyone lost, there was still a home, and for the first time in years I wasn't alone in it.